Karen conflict. Burmese independence, 1948. On the January 4, 1948, Burma gained its independence from Britain. State authority and state structures were still very fragile. In February 1948, 400,000 Karen in a peaceful demonstration showed their solidarity with the creation of the Karen state. Within 3 months after independence, the Communist Party Burma began an armed rebellion, and similarly some Karen separatist groups started an armed struggle for independence. Many members of the KNDOs were former wartime veterans and were in the anti-Japanese, and thus anti-Burmese, resistance. The creation of the KNDO and the IFPFL government's distrust of the Karen collaborators enhanced the ancient old tensions between the Karen and the Burmans. The British Service Mission, BSM, advised the Burmese military after independence on arms purchase and other things. BSM personnel particularly favored Karens for promotion and positions of authority within the army. Burmans thought of this as suspicious. Sporadic fighting took place between Karen militias and Burman troops in early 1948. However, the Karen-led Burmese army helped to suppress the communist rebellion throughout 1948 and thus supported the IFPFL government. In May 1948, the IFPFL government made a concession to the communist rebels and opened the door to the communists to participate in national politics. Karen army and political leaders, mostly rightist-oriented, interpreted this as a proof of the IFPFL government that it was impossible for Karen to live within a state controlled by this government. In June 1948, former PBF officers started organizing meetings to find a solution to the growing power of Karen in the Burmese army and to stop the communist rebellion. From May to August there were minor outbreaks of violence between government-controlled Karen and Burman troops, both fighting the communist. A split in the 3rd Burmese troops on August 10, 1948 immediately exacerbated the tension between Burmese officers and the Karen military leadership. The Karen leadership distrusted the intent of the 3rd Burmese led by the later president of Burma, Ne Win. These army desertions resulted in a stronger Karen grip on the army. The army and the KNDO by this time controlled large parts of the countryside. On August 14, 1948, Karen armed militias took over Twant near Rangoon. Other Karen militias took over Thaton and Kiekami a week later. On 30th of August, the KNDO took over Thaton and a KNDO group took over Moulmein. 1948 was a year characterized by violence in Burma. Every single group owning arms tried to reach for more authority through violence. In general, 2 camps could be identified. One camp could be labeled as rightist and pro-Western. These were Karen army leadership, the KNDO, Karen peace guerrillas, local defense units, of which some members would today be labeled as criminals, most of the police and the Union auxiliary forces. The other camp could be defined as leftist and anti-British. This group was made up by the IFPFL government, some battalions of Burmans within the government army, the Sitwundan, a police/army force established by Prime Minister U Nu in the summer of 1948 as a reaction to the Karen-dominated army, and the rightist/pro-Western police force, and local village defense units and local political armies that rejected communists and rightists. The last 4 months of 1948 saw an escalation of violence throughout Burma. All sides fought for their vision of Burma. Some British officers stayed in the jungle of eastern Burma to support the struggle for independence in Burma. One of them was arrested in Rangoon on 18th of September. The Burmese press blew the incident up, stating a Karen rebellion was at hand, and this led to more Burmese violence towards the Karen. On 19th of September, Tin Tut, a leader of rightist levies and viewed as an ally by many Karen, was assassinated in Rangoon. General Smith Dunn acted as a mediator for a peace deal between KNDO units and the IFPFL government in November. This outraged pro-IFPFL officers within the army. On November 13, 1948, the KNU demanded an independent Karen Mon state which would surround Rangoon. The Burmese press saw this as a move against the Union government. The escalation of tension and violence resulted in larger incidents in December. On Christmas Eve, a locally raised ethnic Burman Sitwundan group threw hand grenades into a church in Palau, killing 80 Christian Karen. The following weeks, hundreds of Karen were murdered by Sitwundan and socialist groups, for which KNDO troops starting retaliating. Outbreak of the Karen conflict, 1949. The IFPFL government relied on Karen, Kachin and Chin battalions to fight insurgencies throughout Burma in the period following the World War II. Karen troops still fought for the IFPFL government up until December 1948. In January 1948, the then Prime Minister of Burma U Nu and Karen leader Sabayugi toured the Irrawaddy River Delta to prevent escalation of violence. Ordered by General Smith Dunn and with permission of U Nu, local KNDO units took the Twant Channel, connecting Rangoon with the Irrawaddy River, from communist rebels. Resembling the chaos of those days, the Rangoon newspapers reported this to be the beginning of the Karen insurgency. This event largely attributed to the rising tension of the time between Karens and Burmans. Later in January, KNDO units raided the armed depots of the army in the KNDO-controlled town of Insein, near Rangoon. Sitwundan units and Burmese students and others moved in on Insein during January and skirmishes occurred. KNDO leaders reacted with calling in more reinforcements from outlying districts. KNDO units trained out in the open in Insein township and set up roadblocks in the area. Burmans living in Insein lost patience and started arming themselves, not relying on the government to protect them. Confrontations spread to wherever Burmans and Karens were living close together, mostly in the river delta. In mid-January, 150 Karen were killed in Takey Township. Lacking central authority, local KNDO units attacked Burmese targets in retaliation. At the same time, the Burmese press inflamed public opinion. Colonel Min Maung, a Karen, was asked to create a diversion to break the stalemate by KNU leader Sabayugi. On January 27, 1949, Colonel Min Maung's first Karen rifles seized the town of Taungoo. Karen Naval Commander Sajak attacked Pathane and other Karen troops seized the town of Pyu the following day. On 30th of January, the KNDO was outlawed by the Union government of Burma and the Karen were purged out of the army 2 days later. Prime Minister Nu expelled all Karen leaders from their military posts, replacing General Smith Dunn with Ne Win. The remainder of Karen in the official armed forces either joined the rebellion or were put into camps. The Insein skirmishes escalated into a battle by January 31, 1949. Taungoo wasn't retaken by the government until March 1949 and the town of Insein not until May 1949, after heavy losses on both sides. On June 14, 1949, the KNU proclaimed the Karen Free State or Kawale together with the Four Principles. These principles have formed the heart of the KNU insurgency ever since.